you would, take out your Bibles and turn to Psalm 101. Psalm 101. We're going to look at some ways in which David makes some personal commitments to lead a godly life. This morning we looked at how David was willing to make confession whenever he was told that he had done wrong, when he admitted that, and we talked about confession a good bit. So one thing that should take place is after we've confessed our wrongs, we've acknowledged that, now we need to make a determination how we're going to live, and then we need to take those action steps. One thing as I read through this, just notice David's heart. Notice what he's deciding he's going to do even in his home, and then how he's going to influence others in what he does. Notice Psalm 101, beginning of verse 1. I will sing of mercy and judgment. Unto thee, O Lord, will I sing. I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. Oh, when wilt thou come unto me? I will walk within my house with a perfect heart. I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. I hate the work of them that turn aside. It shall not cleave to me. A froward heart shall depart from me. I will not know a wicked person. Whoso privily slandereth his neighbor, him will I cut off. Him that hath a high look and a proud heart will not I suffer. Mine eyes shall be upon the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with me. He that walketh in a perfect way, he shall serve me. He that worketh deceit shall not dwell within my house. He that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight. I will early destroy all the wicked of the land, that I may cut off all the wicked doers from the city of the Lord. You know, if you're going to be a king, some kings would start out with some kind of a strategy of all the things they're going to accomplish, how they're going to grow the kingdom, how they're going to be safe, what kind of matters of military strategy and economic strategy, trying to gain certain policies. Kings will probably try to do that. But notice here, this king is different. This is the attitude of a king who's after God's own heart. He's not trying to gain things for himself first. He starts out with his heart of worship. You know, I think that's where we need to start. If you're going to accomplish anything, maybe you're thinking of starting a business. Maybe you're starting a new job. Maybe you're wanting to do better in your job and you're wanting to get a promotion. Maybe you're starting a family. Maybe you're, on and on this list could go. And each of us has varying circumstances as I'm looking out. You know, the number one place that you should start anything is to have a heart of worship towards God first. Your picture of God determines the direction of your life. How you view God is how who you're trying to please. It is everything. David does this in so many ways. Do you know what happens to David when he loses a child? He goes and he worships. Do you know what happened to David when he's being accused and one of his own children are trying to take his kingdom from him? You know what he did? He went and he worshiped. Do you know what David talked about a lot? What he longed for while he was out hanging out in a pit or some cave, and as he's afraid because his enemy wants to attack him and he knows there's just a step between him and death. You know what David does? He's longing to be in the house of God. And he talks about this all the time. He worships. And when David's talking about worship, it's not just like a once in a while thing. This is not just like a once every while, Okay, it's time to go. I'll go. No, David has the heart of wanting to worship God continually. When in Psalm 23, what did he say? I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You know what that really means? I want God with me. I want him with me at all times. Do you do that? Do you take time in your home when no one else is looking? Is that the first thing you think of when you wake up? I want to worship God. Do you stop and pray? Do you stop and sing? Do you, and it's not just like working on the technicals, which is fine. You can learn a song. I think that's good, how we're learning songs and whatnot. And all of that is great. I do think that, I'm not trying to minimize that. You know, it's really important that we're worshiping God. And we're praising him. That's what he does. I will sing. And look what he talks about, what he's singing of. Mercy and judgment. Look at David's heart there. You know, some people only want to think about the parts of God that they like. But David knew. David is singing of God's mercy. He needs God's mercy. David knows that. You know, if he's going to be a good king, he's going to be a good father, you got to have the mercy part. You can't leave that part out. But on the other hand, he doesn't neglect God's judgments either. How can you run a kingdom without knowing that some things need to be executed? Some judgments need to be executed. Some things need to be made that are not always easy. There's the right and the wrong. And the right balance, and God has this. He is a good God and he's a severe God at the same time. David knows both. When David had numbered the people and he knew that he had done wrong, and God gave him 3 choices. Okay, I'm going to give you a punishment. You choose, David. You know what David chose? David chose, I'll take my punishment from God because his mercies are great. Don't let me fall into the hands of man. He knew the mercy of God. But not only that, when Uzzah touched the ark, it says David was afraid of God that day. He knew both. Some people only want to know but one side of God there. Some people, they don't want to think about God as he's this God of justice. But he is. He's both. Behold the goodness and severity of God. And don't think of God as like a God of justice in the Old Testament and mercy in the New. David's talking about both. It's the Psalm of David. He knew both of these attributes of God in the Old Testament. I can see both attributes in the New Testament. God has always been a God of mercy and judgment. But he knows who God is. And he says, unto thee, O Lord, will I sing. Where does your motivation come from to worship? Is it an obligation thing? You feel guilty because you haven't in a while? Or no, my mouth's going to praise him. I have to. I have to sing. I have to think about and praise him for all that he is. So there's the heart of a man who worships. When a person worships God and praises God for who he is, that kind of person is going to live entirely different. I guarantee you the kind of person who knows that he needs mercy, but also there's going to be a judgment, that person's has an entirely different moral compass than this person over here who doesn't even acknowledge God in their thoughts, their prayers, and what they're seeking, and they're trying to follow the rest of the world. No wonder, verse 2, I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. When wilt thou come unto me? And that's kind of an interesting expression. This is an expression of someone who is inviting the Lord into his home. Some people don't do that, obviously. But if we want the Lord to be in our lives and to be in our homes, we need to be the kind of person that the Lord wants to be among. I need to structure my attitude and my life in a way that he would be holy. You know, it says, without holiness, no man shall see the Lord. Who's going to dwell in the tabernacle of God? He that has a clean hands and a pure heart. These are the kinds of attitudes and actions of a person that God dwells among. When he says, I'll behave myself wisely in a perfect way, and then he says, I will walk within my house with a perfect heart. Some people are one thing when they come before other people, and they're an entirely different person in private. Who are you in private? Who am I in private? This is a commitment of a person who wants God all the time. That's what you call integrity. Integrity is when no one else is looking. When you want to please God and no one else sees what you're doing, but God does. God knows your thoughts. And then verse 3, I will set no wicked thing before my eyes. You know, it's one thing if you kind of know, well, that's probably bad. I shouldn't be watching that. I don't know. This book is not promoting something very good. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Then someone who says, I will not. I can't enjoy sin as entertainment. Something that is promoting filth. Something that is putting that into my heart and my life and is going to influence me to change how I ought to view what is right and what is wrong. I can't sit and enjoy something like that, whether it's a song, whether it's a movie, whether it's whatever it is. I will set no wicked. Can you say that and not just say it, but can you mean it the way David is saying it here? I will set no wicked thing before my eyes. And have that as your determination. And then, even if that's a struggle at first, will you come back to that? That if you drift from that idea, can you remember that verse and draw it in that moment whenever, okay, now here's a choice. Somebody's asking you, you want to watch this, you want to see this, you want to go do this with us, and you're wondering in your mind, should I be doing this? Is God wanting me doing this? Maybe I shouldn't. And then, and you're about to slip, or maybe you start down that road and you realize, I can't be doing this. You know, you can walk out of a theater. That is something that you can do. If you're sitting there watching and you realize, I shouldn't be here. I will set no wicked thing before my eyes. Make that your motto. Not just a statement. And you don't have to go telling everybody else that necessarily. You just have that as your own commitment. And then, I hate the work of them that turn aside. Now notice, David loves God's mercy. He's not talking about a brother who's gotten trapped in some sin and then now he's made confession. He's not hating the brother. But these kinds of actions and these kind of activities, he hates them. Not the people, but he hates the work of those who turn away, those who fall away. Why would you leave God? You know, there's various reasons why somebody would turn away from God. They can use all kinds of excuses. Well, I turned away from God because sometimes people of God, you know what, they frustrate me. Well, what does that got to do with your commitment to God? That's them. That's people. Yes, sometimes people frustrate us. You're going to leave the Lord because somebody else left the Lord? That makes no sense. God has always been right there. Keep your relationship with God regardless of what anybody else does, even if it's somebody here. Maybe somebody would turn away because something happened to them. Maybe it's life gets hard. Then who else is there to turn? You know, Do you think David had an easy life? Do you think if anybody could have said, you know what, look at all the things that have happened to me. I've been running for my life for who knows how long, running from Saul. And then as a king, I've had these ups and downs in my life. I've had children that have committed some very heinous things against him and their own, against each other, if you really know the full situation there. Is there anyone, if anybody could be trying to use all of these hardships and circumstances to say, you know what, I'm done with trying to live a godly life. Do you think David could have used those excuses? It hasn't changed his love and his devotion for God, though. He knows the difference between things that he's brought upon his own house, things that others have done that are beyond his control. He knows his Lord. He knows his God. And his relationship with God is just as committed regardless of all the stuff that happens. You know, David had a wife that was taken and given to another man. I mean, do I need to name all the kinds of things that has happened to David and the injustices that has happened to him? I don't hear David complaining that God did this to him. But he says, I hate the work of them that turn aside, those who fall away. I can say, I hate the idea of someone, here's someone who needs God, their maker, who has never failed them. I hate the idea of someone leaving God, leaving the faith, leaving the Lord because of what somebody else has done or some other circumstance. Don't we want to go to heaven? Do we want to be with God? What do you think we're going to be doing in heaven? Don't I want to be about worshiping Him and doing what is right here? I hate the work of those who turn aside. It shall not cleave to me. You know, there's some things where we need to be patient and we need to be fair. But there are other things that we need to be principled enough that we can say, I can't tolerate that. That has no place in my home, under my roof. It has no place in my heart and in my life. It has no place in the church. You know, you can have both. You can have the patience, because we definitely need that. And then you can have the determination that some things are off limits and are not tolerated and are not allowed. Now, someone who has committed one of these and you have an attitude of trying to win them first, that should definitely be there. But he's not going to tolerate the turning away. Verse 4, a froward heart shall depart from me. I will not know a wicked person. Who you surround yourself with, who you are attracted to, says a lot about what you like, where your heart is. Who are you drawn to? You know, this is what happens to some people. You can leave the state. You can go on a trip hundreds of miles away. And then whenever you find that person, like the very first day or the first week, they're already making associations wherever they move to. And the kinds of people they're surrounding themselves with is an indication of what they're attracted to. People know their own kind. David says, a froward heart shall depart from me. I will not know a wicked person. Verse 5, whoso privily slandereth his neighbor, him will I cut off. David is not going to tolerate false accusations. He's not going to tolerate gossip. Could you imagine, how are you going to do this and how are you going to run a kingdom if you got people trying to undermine, and usually what causes gossip and slander and things like this, somebody's got a personal agenda. Somebody has their own thing that they're trying to follow for themselves. It has an evil motive. And so then they ruin somebody else's reputation, probably for a selfish reason. And it's false. It's wrong. He says, I'm going to cut that off. So how would we apply this today? If somebody wants to share some kind of gossip about a brother or a sister, imagine, I think what you should do is you should ask them, have you talked to that person? Have you spoken to them about this? If you haven't, don't be telling me. Stop right there. Don't tell me anymore. Because do you think that if you're listening to someone gossiping about somebody else, you think they're going to share the juicy details with you, and then whenever you go away, they're not going to say things about you? You ever think that it works like that? Cut off whispering, backbiting, tale-bearing. Cut that off. It's one thing to be a party to it where you're telling it. It's another if you're condoning it by listening to it. David says, cut that off. Now, gossip can be subtle because sometimes excuses can be made. Be honest here. Oh, I need to talk to you about this because I need some advice on this particular thing. And then next thing you know, I've spewed out and I've hurt somebody's reputation when I should have kept that contained. You see how tricky it is? Be honest about it. David, there's not like a smeared line about this. I will cut off those who privately slander their neighbor. Ahab wasn't this kind of a man. Jezebel was not that kind of a woman. Remember, Ahab wanted this piece of land, and he's pouting because the guy wouldn't sell it to him. So his wife says, I'll show you how to do it. So she goes and she falsely accuses somebody, has them executed from the false accusation. Then she goes and tells Ahab, hey, go take your land. And the Lord held Ahab accountable for that. Even though he didn't do it himself. Be careful. Let's be the kind of people where we speak well of one another. We think the best of one another. Give each other the benefit of the doubt. If somebody says something, don't assume the worst. The principles are, what do? There's two sides. The first to plead their case appears to be right, then another comes and examines. Don't make judgments too quickly. Reserve your judgment. Don't jump to conclusions. Assume the best. These are the ways to handle slander, gossip, backbiting. God hates strife, sowing of discord among brethren. When you have something like what we have, it is precious. It is something to be guarded. It's something to be protected and kept. And you want it to stay like it is, where it's peaceful. And you want it to remain that way. And so the way to get rid of this poison that can damage so many things is to cut off slander before it ever starts. Him that has a high look and a proud heart will not I suffer. God hates pride. Where did David learn this? He learned this from God. He's been praising God for who he is. If you love who God is, you will love what he loves. You will hate what he hates. God hates a proud look. Pride goes before the fall. being swelling up, thinking more highly of yourself, being unwilling to admit where we have messed up. Those are all pride. Pride causes so much damage. Whether it's a kingdom like David's running, or whether it's a home, whether it's a church, whether it's other relationships. A whisper separates chief friends. You can have two people, imagine this, two people who are the best of friends, have a close relationship. It can be ruined in one moment because of pride. God hates a proud look. He says, I won't allow that. Verse 6, mine eyes shall be upon the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with me. He that walketh in a perfect way, he shall serve me. Surround yourself with faithful people. You know what? If you hang around and you spend time with and you tie strings with godly people who are principled people, they're going to influence you in the right way. You're going to be around people with the right kind of accountability. It's going to help you. You're going to help each other. There's going to be times where one of you might be struggling with something, but you have the strength of the other to lean upon. You're not going to get that out there like that. Yes, you should try to influence people out there. Yes, you need to reach out to people about that. You try to bring people in. But our closest relationships, those that we have the strongest ties with, needs to be with people who share our love and appreciation for God. That's who he says his eyes will be upon. The faithful of the land. Those are the ones that are going to dwell with me. And why wouldn't you want to spend time with people like that who share that love of God? Verse 7, he that worketh deceit shall not dwell within my house. He that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight. Now here's the real question. Ask those in your home. Do the people in my home, what do they think of me? How would they describe me? Would they describe me as patient? Would they describe me as gracious, merciful? Would they describe me as a principled person? Would they describe me as an approachable person? That if in the event they needed to come to me with the potential correction, would I be ready to make them feel like, okay, you better never question me again? Or do the people in my own home know me as, I'll just talk to him? Should be that easy. Have the right attitude, the right heart. Verse 8, I will early destroy all the wicked of the land. Now this is a king talking. You and I are not going to go out here and destroy the wicked of the land. We don't have that authority. We don't have that power. We can pray to God for justice. But he says that I may cut off all the wicked doers from the city of the Lord. But this is a man who does not allow certain things to go unpunished because he's a good king. And no wonder God loved him. And no wonder God said about that man, he was better than Saul. Saul started out kind of humble, but then he did get prideful. He did get selfish. He did get vengeful. He did get disrespectful and disobedient before God. He was a man who went rogue doing his own thing. David had a good start as far as his attitude and all of those things go. He really messed up badly on a couple of occasions. So he was human too. So this isn't about a man who's saying, I'm perfect. This is about a man who says, I will. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to be about. So if you know in your own self, okay, I'm struggling with some things. I know I've messed up in a few areas. Do like we said this morning. Confess that. Forsake that. But then have these determinations like this. Be principled people. And say, I will live this way. I'm thankful that we can have verses like this to teach us. You're not a Christian. God's not expecting the impossible of you. But if you're willing to make a determined life to please God, you're willing to say, I believe in Jesus, I believe in what he did for me, I want to be right with him, then you repent, you confess that belief, and you're baptized. And then you're raised, and then you walk in newness of life. If you're intending on walking that life that God can dwell with you, like David mentioned in this psalm, then we encourage you to make that change. If you are already a child of God, but you see some things in here that you can grow in, and I encourage you to make those changes and adopt those as your beliefs, as David did. And if you need to make a confession, we're here to help you. You can come to the front while we stand and as we sing.